Hi, this is Jonathan, and I am going to walk you through creating a worldwide telescope cache file. And the object of this is to be able to create a standalone version of Worldwide Telescope that can be distributed on a memory stick or a thumb drive, or maybe even a DVD. So the object is to select the subset of data that we want to pre-cache. So first of all, we start out by wanting to create a version of Worldwide Telescope where we've already have just the types of files we want to support, and that means that we need to start out by emptying our cache and making sure that we start out completely clean. So first of all, you can do this by loading up the version of the cabinet file that will be as a sample that will have a few levels of the DSS and some other files that have already been preloaded on there as a sample, and that's one place to start. And if you want to use that method, you can. Otherwise, you can do two different ways, one of which is erasing the files directly by looking into the user folder. So for instance, looking under C:/users under the Worldwide Telescope directory lets us find our communities, data, DEM, imagery, etc. So these folders here, we can select data in these folders and delete them individually. So if we want, we can click on properties, find out how much space is in here. So this is the way to sort of manually look at it. The location is C:/users and then your username, app data, local, Microsoft, Worldwide Telescope. And then from there, there's other subdirectories like communities, data, DEM, imagery, temp layer, and there will be others like projector warp maps and other things like that, depending upon the data. But most of this can be cleaned out to get an initial starting point. After running Worldwide Telescope the first time, what you can do to initialize your cache is one of a few things. First of all, you can go to different places. This will obviously download everything you're looking at and allow you to add that to the cache. Secondly, you can go through any collections and click on Play Collection as Slideshow, and this will, one at a time, fly to each of the objects in the collection. I'll go ahead and start that off right now. And so it will go through one at a time, playing each object in the collection and adding that to the cache as it sort of drives to each one individually. The other method you can do is to go to the individual objects that you want to look at, right-click on them. So for instance, we can come into Nebula and we can come into M42. And we can go ahead and say that we want to cache this image tile pyramid by right-clicking and selecting this. It tells us that the max levels is level 7, which this is a humongous file. This alone could take 1/4 of the 4 GB limit of a DVD. So what we might want to do is only download the first 4 levels of this. And by clicking download, we'll watch as these 85 tiles, which represent the level of details for each of these files, are automatically downloaded into our cache. So that allows us to specifically go entry by entry through images and definitively load every tile for a certain level. This obviously could get to be pretty significantly expensive when you talk about the huge number of images we have. But so in the case of being able to play a images as slideshows or collection of slideshows may be a little bit more efficient in terms of not having to do as much manpower on it. But what it will mean is that you don't have the certainty that every tile from all the levels that are being touched are downloaded, because it will use the engine will render at whatever resolution your screen is set at and whatever tiles are necessary for that part of the view. But on the flip side of that, that means that when you go and play a guided tour, you can go through and play the tours one at a time, or using the auto repeat and turning them to all, and then you can walk through entire groups and play every tour. And what this will do is it will ensure that the tours are downloaded into the cache, and that all the tiles that those tours use will be downloaded onto the cache. Now, sometimes you may need to play this a couple of times, because what might happen is, as it's going through an area very quickly, the full level of detail may not download. Now, the danger in doing this is that you really, if you download too much, then you start having to trim back your cache, and that might be require a lot of manual work. So one of the things that if you realize that your cache settings are getting pretty significant, and the way you measure that is click on the Manage Data Cache and then watch as it loads up all the imagery. After the first time that you purge your cache in order to start from scratch again, you will not want to purge again, because this will blow away everything you've done and all the work, and that's not what you want to do. But if you find that, say, you've downloaded sets of images that require a huge amount of space, for instance, this giant Hubble mosaic of the Crab Nebula, you can remove the image layer from collection, and it will remove all of the data for that. So you can click on that. It says there's no image to purge and no data to purge here. The other thing we can do is say we want to preload this. We can go back in and say we only want to have 2 levels or 3 levels of this image, and then download that. And say we decide maybe 3 levels was too much. Now we can remove from image cache. It tells us that 2.69 meg was free. We're also in the final version of the tool we're going to have, besides remove from image cache, we're going to have a menu item just directly under it that will say check image size, image cache size, and that will give you some metrics as to how much you've used. Okay, well, wrapping things up, we've used the cache management to clear data out. We've played tours and used the cache tile image pyramid menu item, as well as browsing around, selecting different modes, making sure that everything we want in this cache is going to be available. And periodically, we've looked at our cache settings here to find out how much space we're already using in our cache. Once this totals up somewhere around just under 3.9 gigabytes, we're going to be ready to finalize this cache and make it available. So you can then use the settings menu and click on Advanced and save your cache as a cabinet file. And then what this will do is we'll give it a name, and so I will put like John's cab, and then click on Save. And what this will do now is it's actually going to walk through all of the files that we've been caching and turn them all into one single file. So it's going to take about 4 gigabytes of file and write them all together into one big huge cache file. that then we'll be able to put on a thumb drive and extract later on. So once you've done that, you can empty your cache out again, and then you can use Advanced and restore cache from cabinet file. And this will allow you to see what it's like for the users to be able to go ahead and select that John's Cabinets file and go ahead and open it again. And then what that will do is that will restore all of your cabinet file to the state, and your cache to the state of what was stored in the cabinet file. So all of these tools together can be used to manage your data cache and ensure that you know exactly what you want on the disk or on the thumb drive, and provide a offline system on a single unit that, without connection to the internet, will be able to play back those set of tours, play back the parts of the sky that you're interested, parts of the Earth you're interested. And what we're eventually hoping to do is find a good representative 4 gigabyte segment that represents a good set of functionality for Worldwide Telescope to be able to deploy to these kids, using computers that are not connected to the internet. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at jfay@microsoft.com, and I will do everything I can to help. Thanks for listening, and we appreciate your participation in this crowdsourcing of the Worldwide Telescope data cache products. Thank you.